Welcome to another episode of the Lone Recruiter Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Clemenson, and if you're a recruiter, out on your own, or just lacking general advice or guidance, you've come to the right place. Our episodes are designed to give you the mentorship, the guidance, and the strategies you might need to become the very best lone recruiter. So join us, grab another coffee, a cup of coffee, and let's take your desk to another level. Now, today I am on my quest to interview 100 top billing recruiters to determine what the ultimate recipe for recruitment success is. And today we are joined by Colin Faulkner from Scotford Fennessy in Perth, and I hope I got that right. Colin, welcome.
Almost. Yep, you got me right, but Scotford Fennessy with an F at the second part there. We're not affiliated with any brandy at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, excuse me. It's Friday afternoon. I'm already thinking about the weekend. So there we go. Hey, look, Colin, welcome. For those of you playing at home, we actually worked together very briefly in separate offices in a previous life, and we've gone off and done on our separate ways, and we've come back around. I wanted him on the podcast because I know he's a great recruiter, and hopefully he's got some great insights for us today. But before we kick into the 5 questions I normally ask, just in a nutshell, 60 seconds, Colin. You can give me a life story, or you can give me a recruitment story. Just give everyone a picture of what we're here for.
Yep. Yeah. So recruiting for the last 12 odd years now. Probably a fairly typical story of how I got to recruitment, in that didn't go out with intentions of being a recruiter, but kind of landed in it. One of those kind of awkward conversations where at a previous employer, my manager came up to me at lunchtime and went, "What are your long-term intentions?" And I was like, "Oh, well, you're my manager, so I've got to say the right thing." And then she went, "You're not loving it, are you?" My best mate, who you and I know quite well, Sally said to me, "My best mate, Felicity, is looking for recruiters. I reckon you should give her a call." And I think that was a Monday. Felicity and I met on the Thursday, and I started on the following Monday. So the rest, as they say, is history. In terms of recruitment, it's all been white-collar professional roles, had a number of different desks, starting in mining engineering back in the day, did some resi construction for a while, and then have been mostly in legal for the last 7 odd years now, give or take. Mm-hmm. And with the current role here with Scotford Fennessy, it's more of a billing manager type role with more management and more billing, depending on, it kind of goes up and down depending on which way the wind's blowing, but kind of wearing 2 hats these days. I guess that's the recruitment side. Family-wise, couple of kids and long-term partner, and built a new house last year. Thank you, recruitment, for that.
That's it. Recruitment builds houses. I feel like that's the go-to for most of us, because I was actually saying this today in the office, like, a lot of the time what we do, there's nothing tangible. There's no product. I mean, it's all advice, and it's all like, we place people, but there's no product, no book, there's no like widget, there's no. So what do? We buy houses.
That's it.
All right, let's jump into it. So 5 questions for you. I'm really intrigued to hear your answers. Let's jump into it.
Yep.
If you could only have one KPI to measure the success of your desk right now, what is that KPI?
Yeah. Probably something you've heard a bit, but it's just where the rubber hits the road in terms of recruitment. It's the client interview. It's the candidate meeting a client. That's where it all happens ultimately. So if those aren't happening, then it's a pretty good lead indicator that you're going to have some problems down the line.
Absolutely.
I would add one additional thing to this though, and it's something that I'm working with some of my newer to recruitment team members at the moment. One of them in particular has come from more of a blue collar, high volume environment and is transitioning into more of a white collar, specialized, more targeted recruitment space. And we're focusing a bit more on that what we call a float call, what you and I, Brett, would have called a canvas call back in the day, of actually measuring all right, how many people are you out there marketing your candidate to? Because sometimes, especially when you're newer in your career or you're not known to your clients out there, you got a little bit less control about how many interviews you get in a weekly basis. But if you're making those float calls consistently, you're talking to decision makers, you're talking to people potentially accessing roles that your competitors aren't accessing. They're out. You're getting that. You're operating more in that rarefied air where you're not one of many in one space.
Well, it's about getting at the right place at the right time and hitting it with the right thing, and you can only do that through volume of those canvas calls or floats. 100%.
Correct. Yeah. So that's something we're working on. But ultimately, once you are in the hum of a desk and it's running for you, it's got to be interviews.
That's a really interesting point. We won't harp onto it for too long, but we're doing that internally at the moment, which is your KPI week to week might actually change. You know what I mean? Like if you're building a desk or you're transitioning from blue collar to white collar, well, your KPI should be different to your KPI or my KPI, because we've got a rhythm, a hum, or we've got a focus, or we've got targets that we're already chasing. That's where our activities need to be. But if you're building a desk or you're trying to work out where your market is, of course, like your KPI this week could actually just be how many meaningful conversations are you having with potential clients to therefore gather a better understanding of what that market looks like, therefore understanding where those interviews are going to eventually come from.
100%. We use a scorecard metric. It's essentially a KPI. We report it on in our weekly team meetings, and everyone in the business from the admin team through to the big boss has a set metric. Now, we usually set those on a 90-day basis, and then we review them. But we've probably just in the last couple of cycles have gone, hey, just because we've got that measurable doesn't mean we can't change it within that 90-day cycle to make it a bit more tailored to, okay, where's your desk at now? So that's something a bit new to us in terms of evolving that measurable throughout the course of our quarterly cycles.
I feel like we didn't have one KPI just now. I feel like we just covered them all. But anyway, we're going to move on. I love it. If it was a speed dating scenario and you had the perfect candidate in front of you, but you had zero time for whatever reason, and you could only ask 3 questions to interview this candidate, what are the 3 that you're going to ask?
Okay. In my head, recruitment is problem solving. And you can't solve the problem until you define the problem. Mm-hmm. So I very much, if I had 3 questions I had to ask, it would be, why are you talking to me today? So essentially getting a reason for leaving. Non-negotiables in a new job. And what else would I ask them? I actually jotted the final one down. What have you done already? What have you done so far in your search? And I guess there's nothing in that, and I fully appreciate there's nothing in that in terms of judging how good that candidate is in terms of technically where they're at and that sort of thing. There's a lot of assumptions that you need to make as a result, but I guess that's dealing with the legal space. I can get a pretty good idea of what kind of clients they're operating with, what kind of work they're doing, purely based on the firm that they're with and how many years PAE and that sort of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of devil in the detail to separate individuals out, but I would much prefer to get a mandate in terms of what this candidate is looking for and be able to go and hit the market and then come back to them and go, this is what I've got, tying back to that floating canvassing situation. This is what we've got, and then kind of do a follow-up interview that goes into specific stuff around that specific job. Then I would go, I'm going to talk all about what your experience is and have no idea what's actually going to get you out of bed to go to my
And look, you basically as well, from what I can glean, those questions are around, A, can I help you? Can I solve your problem? And are we going to waste each other's time? And that's it, right? And then after that, obviously, this is a made up scenario. Of course, you're not going to ask just 3 questions, but yours are almost like red light, green light, red light, green light. Like if you get 3 greens, then we're going.
Well, it doesn't even necessarily have to be red light, green light. It could be, but you are right. We're triaging our time. We cannot give all this time to every single individual we talk to because there's finite time in a week. And I think of one of my biggest placements ever, equity partner. The final question. It just so happened that the one option that I had was the one option that he hadn't looked at in the market. and but he
yes, that's the best.
and it gets better. He went to primary school with the hiring manager. So, they were mates from 11 years old. So the stars aligned. But, you look at an A grade candidate on paper who's top tier trained and all of that, and then they come to you and go, well, I only want another top tier, but I've got coverage on the other five already. They're not an A grade candidate anymore because you may be able to chip away and get them to go to a global or an alternative, what have you, but you're always coming with prize B in their minds. Whereas a B grade candidate on paper who hasn't touched the market and is a bit more malleable to what, or a bit more understanding of what might be out there, could actually suddenly be an A grade candidate because of the.
And that's it, right? We talk about A grade, B grade, C grade clients all the time. Where's your money coming from? Which ones need to work on, and which ones are just we're going to headhunt from. But applying that to candidates, you're right. Like an A grade candidate isn't necessarily the best looking candidate. It's the most placeable candidate, right?
Yep, it is. Yeah. It is.
All right. Moving forward, I'd like this episode to be quick. Let's say you've now got your candidate right at the close. The offers come in from the client. Yep. What's your favourite closing question, or what is your favourite closing approach to get this person's stitched up?
I think the latter point that you made there is more how I operate. I'm dealing with lawyers. They do not like being backed into a corner. They make decisions. They're risk adverse. They negotiate for a living. So you've got to let them have a bit of a win. You've got to let them have thinking time. So I am more of a process closer. It's lots of chats. Making time with people when they're actually paying you full attention. Having those chats in an evening rather than when they're looking over their shoulder in an open plan, and just having those strategies around moving them towards that close.
So this is way before an offer comes out. At what point
Absolutely.
Are you starting to close a candidate?
Well, look, I back in the day, I was always have a verbal offer, get this person wrapped up. But I'm talking to get the commitment before we even have paperwork. But you're talking to a lawyer who reviews contracts for a living. Like they want to look at every single thing. My experience is they go, yeah, I'm happy, but I need the devil's in the detail in the contract. So I very much I'm not releasing it. I'm getting a sense of where they are with other things. I'm not just flicking it out there and letting it go into the ether. I'm nursing them through that process. But my experience of late has been you've got to just put it out there and feel confident that they genuinely want the job. But and that's a process of conversation and relationship building and that sort of thing.
Sure. And let's just say you get your candidate to sign or agree, yes, I'm taking that job, and you get that call a few days later with the counteroffer has landed and your candidate's head spinning. Do you have an approach with counteroffer?
Yeah. Well, if the first time you're dealing with counteroffer is when the counteroffer has landed, then you are so far behind the eight ball, it's not funny. My approach with counteroffer is talk about it early, and assuming I've got more than 3 questions to ask in the interview, I'm talking them. I'm sorry, I'm breaking your guidance. I'm talking about it potentially even at the first interview. If not, then oftentimes I'm doing that scoping kind of conversation first, going back with options, and then going into a deeper interview in a second conversation. And at that point, talk to me about resignation. What's the response going to be? How I'm assessing risk in terms of how critical is this individual within the partner's team structure to go, okay, this is the sole senior associate, and then they've got 3 grads below them, and then the partner's sitting there thinking, shit, if I lose this person, I am back to doing 90-hour weeks because I've got no one doing that middle level work. I've got 2/3 of zero chance of finding another SA in this current market because there's no lawyers out there at that level. And I start just mapping how much of a risk it is, how big a dump truck of money can they back up to this candidate's house to get them to stay. And then at the same time, I'm making the candidate be fully aware it is coming. It is a business decision. It is not necessarily because they think you walk on water. It's all of those risk factors that the partner is assessing in their own business and making sure that they expect the counter offer so that when it comes, that they think, yeah, this is par for the course, rather than it being a flattering pat on the back.
And I think every recruiter is the same. Counter offer starts at interview, and it's the younger, newer recruiters. If you're listening, and you just it comes to you as a surprise, it should not come to you as a surprise.
Yep.
The current employer is going to say stay. We had it in our office. We had it with a candidate early this week with Aaron, and the candidate said, "Oh, I told my boss I'm going on an interview, and they told me to stay, so I'm going to stay." What? Like, just the most bizarre behaviour. And you just go, and that was early on in the process. So that's why you want to catch it early.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Counteroffer, the other mistake for young players, if we can put it that way, is thinking counteroffer is only financial. Counteroffer can be all kinds of different things. It can be structural. It can be, purely emotional. It can be all kinds of things. So just
comes back to your problem solving. Comes back to the problem solving, and just educating them in those different forms that it can come, so that they're pre-warned is pre-armed, and they know how to handle it, and can straight bat it, so that it becomes less of a risk. Again, the lawyers tend to be, if they've signed a contract, signatures on a dotted line, they're trained to follow through on it. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't have a senior legal counsel pull out 2 days before he was due to start after a 2.5 month notice period. Wow.
That was a fun call to the client.
Well, actually brings me to my last and final question, which is, how do you pull yourself out of a slump? Because I'm betting you that one hit you hard.
That one hit me hard. That one just, what I found really, it's a client that I've done a lot of work with. So he and I basically just got, we're opposite sides of the country, but it was just a case of us going, a word that
you could swear. You could swear.
Just going, this is a really shitty situation, and just kind of bonding a bit over it, going, okay, yeah, this is awful. Ultimately, I understood why the candidate did it. That was the worst part. The option had popped up later. It was better for him and his family. So you've got to have a bit of empathy as to, it was a regional role rather than just a Australia role. So there was a whole lot of factors in it.
So how do you pull yourself out of that slump though? I mean, you bond with the client.
Yep. So in that case, I bonded with the client. And there's a couple of different slumps that I think you can fall into in recruitment. Recruitment burnout is a real thing. And I think it's beholden on us, both as recruiters and as managers, to identify it. And if it's happening, you need to get your people or yourself out of the office. And I'm not talking about a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks where your entire pipeline dies. A long weekend, a Friday and a Monday where you go and get your feet in the sand or just do something, has an amazing rejuvenation effect. You get out of the city, you're just out of,
absolutely,
that one day either side, and turn your email off. Nothing is going to rot on the vine in that amount of time. Hopefully you've got colleagues, you've got other business partners within a business, whatever, that you can lean on, who can cover you for a few days. go and switch off and rejuvenate.
And you know what I love about that, right? And I'll go to the nth degree around rejuvenation. Like when you're burnt out, it's your nervous system's fried, your adrenals are blasted. You've just got to get that adrenaline out. You've got to calm down that nervous system and earthing yourself, or going to the ocean and getting those negative ions, or getting some sunshine, getting some vitamin D, all that stuff. Massages, yoga, love, hugs, fun, laughter. That stuff really is the simplest medicine. But what you're saying there too about, you don't need a lot of time, and if you catch it before it's burnout or just before, that's even better, and it will never go full-blown burnout where you can't get out of bed. But if you're doing a Friday and a Monday, the other benefit for that, it just came to me, is that stuff will happen Friday, stuff will happen Monday, and most of it can wait. And when you come back on Tuesday, you just see all the good things that are in your inbox and your phone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you actually come back.
That brings me to my second point, which is, if it isn't burnout and it's just everything I touch is turning to shit, the old reverse Midas touch, which happens. I think I'm a big person for sitting back, making a plan, and sometimes it's the last thing you want to do, but activity is how you get back on the horse. Make a to-do list, number it, and just start working through it. Start talking to people, start talking to clients that like you. Go and have a chat with them, even if it's just, we're heading towards Christmas. People are already talking about January start dates, that kind of chat. Can you believe it? Those kind of get back on the, just start talking to people. Something will come of that. Go talk to some candidates. You never know. And once you start getting that activity level back, suddenly and look, I think the beauty of our industry is you can have a shocking couple of weeks or whatever, and then you get a great candidate who says, hey, I've been referred to you. I'm not talking to anyone else. I've got a great reason for leaving. I'm willing to look at all of your clients, and suddenly you're back on the horse, and
activity creates activity. Or they've been everywhere, and the one option that they haven't been to is yours, and you've got a brief, and they're best buddies from primary school. And on that bloody note, that's all we have time for you today. Colin, that was amazing. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Good to chat.
So if you enjoyed this episode, listening at home, please give us a 5-star review. We really do appreciate them. Or subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. As always, have an amazing day, and may all your deals come true.